Nobody dies, nobody fails, nobody really even loses. The four kids end up exactly where they started. But Hyouka still leaves a hole in our chest anyways. And the strangest part, we can't point to the thing that hurt us. The credit just rolls and there's a part in us sitting there saying something is missing and we can't even name that feeling. So here what's actually going on. Hyouka isn't a story about a boy who gets fixed. It's about four people who never finish changing and an ending that refuses to let them finish. Let me talk about this in depth. So who are they? A boy who decided the world wasn't worth his energy, a girl who never believed him, and two friends caught somewhere between who they are and who they are still trying to become. And that's the whole show. Everything else is just watching how each of them slowly changes, but why that makes the ending hurt so much. Oriki Hotaro's famous motto, if I don't have to, I won't, and if I have to, I'll make it quick. And here's the funny part, he follows that motto more seriously than most of us follow our actual teacher. Most people look at him and just call him lazy, but the reason behind his grey world isn't something the anime ever tell us. Before the anime even begins, back in elementary school, one of the Oriki's teacher noticed something about him. He was genuinely kind-hearted, the type who almost never said no whenever someone asked for help. So the teacher and even some of his classmates started leaning on him for fixing classroom lights, doing other people's work, and little by little, people start using his kindness because of his habit of saying yes. It went long enough that his sister stepped in and she told him to take a long holiday and to rest. And even if he couldn't change himself while he was resting, someday someone would come along and end his holiday for him. That was the whole thing, just a small unfairness that nobody thought was serious enough to confront, but something shifted in him. If being kind means people take from you for their own benefits without ever thinking about the cost, then maybe being kind isn't worth it. So he stopped, not because he was like that to begin with, but because he learned something very early that kindness has a price and nobody warns you when the bill arrives. The anime begins while he is still on that long holiday, still grey, but during the film arc, Irisu the Empress comes along and proves that lesson all over again. Fuyumi Irisu is known around the school as the Empress and there's a reason for it. So when her class murder mystery film falls apart, she asks Classic Literature Club to figure out how it's supposed to end. And she tells Oriki he's special and that he has real talent and that he should use that talent to help other people. And after a long time in his life, he believes it. But there was never a mystery to begin with. She just simply didn't like the weak script that her classmate had written. The whole thing was just a way of getting Oriki to write a better ending for her. When Oriki confronts her, she doesn't deny it, and the praises was just a tool to make him work. And all he quietly says is, that actually makes me feel better. Because if the praise was fake, maybe then he was never special in the first place. And being special costs energy, and being ordinary keeps him safe. The teacher simply took from him, and Irisu took something he chose to give. The result felt exactly the same, but Oriki isn't the only one who never finished changing. The friend standing next to him learned the exact opposite lesson. Satoshi Fukabe is a bright, funny and always smiling type of guy. He calls himself a database, someone who knows thousands of facts, but really never knows how to turn those facts into something meaningful. Which honestly sounds little too close to my engineering degree, but anyways, it sounds like a joke, but it's probably the most saddest thing he says in the entire show. There's a scene in episode 8 where Satoshi gives everyone cards that matches their personality. But the interesting part is the one that he wants for himself. He wants the Fool card, the card of curiosity, risk and taking leap. That's the version of himself he still wishes he could be. But instead he gives it to Chitanda and keeps the magician, the one who points but never reaches. Except one last time during the school festival season. Satoshi gives his best to beat Oriki, full effort on purpose, and he still loses because Oriki is naturally good at these things. But there's a scene where he says something very simple to Oriki, I am not like you, and that's the moment Satoshi realizes his struggle was never the same as Oriki's. Oriki stopped before he could fail, Satoshi gave everything he had and failed anyways. From that point on, you can see the changes everywhere. Even in the arcade scene when he and Oriki plays the same game they have been playing since middle school, He doesn't even try to win anymore. He just plays, smiles, and loses. The old Satoshi would have given everything he had, but this one doesn't. Then comes one of the saddest moments in the show. Mayaka makes Valentine's chocolate for Satoshi and he breaks it. But why? Because Mayaka is one thing that he can't stay true about it. He spent the whole show trying to become someone who doesn't want anything too much. But loving Mayaka means becoming the old version of himself he has been trying to leave behind. So instead of choosing one version of himself over the other, he chooses nothing, and the chocolate breaks instead. The story never lets him finish the change, and neither does the ending. But Satoshi isn't the only one who is changing. Right next to him is someone who reacts to the exact same struggle in completely opposite way. Mayaka Aibara barely gets talked about, but she might be the bravest one in the room. She is not genius, she draws manga and she knows exactly where her limits are. During the school festival, she sees another artist's work that simply is better than anything she has ever drawn. It brings her to tears and then she keeps drawing anyways. If Oriki is afraid to try and Satoshi is afraid to try again, then Mayaka is the one who keeps trying even when she already knows she might never be the best. She never stops moving, and there is Chitanda, the one person who barely needs to change at all. Most people describe Chitanda Aru as the bright, curious girl who fixes Oriki. I don't think that what the story is doing. Chitanda never changes herself to fit the world around her. She is curious about everything and she treats the interesting version of the world like the only version is the worth seeing. There's a moment during the school festival where she tries to copy Irusu's way of doing things to sell the anthologies. It drains her by the end of the festival. She is exhausted in a way we almost never have seen. And in the end, she quietly goes back to her old self, which we all enjoy. Chitanda has her own way. She asks people directly. She trusts her own honesty. She never becomes Irushu. She never needed to be. By the time the story begins, Chitanda already knows who she is. And the rest of the show is about everyone else trying to figure that out. Now here's the interesting part. None of these stories are actually finished. That's exactly where the ending begins. Chitanda tells Oriki about her family, the future, and the life waiting for her back home, the lands, the responsibility she eventually have to carry. She even admits that she has never been good at handling the business side of the things. The show never treats it like a tragedy, it just let it exist. And for just a second, Oriki imagined himself saying, "Then I'll take care of the business side." He never actually says it, it's only something he let himself imagine. Then he smiles and says nothing. The scene ends right there. And that's not the point. The silent confession isn't what hurts. It's the fact that for the first time, Oriki changes toward rose-colored life just because he wants to help Chitanda. So why does it hurt? Because the real life almost never gives us the chance to watch people finish becoming who they are going to be. Sometimes school ends, sometimes a friend slowly disappears from our life. Sometimes you meet someone years later and realize they are a completely different person now. There isn't always a final conversation where things get resolved. Life just keeps moving. And Hyouka understands that. Oriki finally reaches the point where he wants to live a colorful life, but the story ends before he learns how to live in one. Satoshi is still caught somewhere between the person he wants to become and the person he convinced himself to be. Mayaka keeps moving forward anyways, and Chitanda simply keeps walking the path she always believed in. That's why the ending stays with us. Not because anyone failed, not because anyone got the ending they wanted, but because the story leaves every one of them somewhere unfinished. The story doesn't wait for their lives to make sense, it simply leaves them where the real life usually leaves us, somewhere in the middle. And that's a very strange feeling. Because one day, without realizing, most of us experience exactly the same thing. We look back at that old friend, old classroom, old version of ourselves, and only then we do realize we never actually saw the moment everything changed. It already happened. That's why Hyouka feels nostalgic even the first time you watch it. Not because it reminds us of the past, but because it quietly reminds us that the present is already becoming one. Director Yasuhiro Takemoto, sorry if I misspelled him wrong, One said that the story ends here, but their lives are only just beginning now. I think that exactly what the final scene leave us with. Not a ending, just four people quietly becoming who they are going to be. And maybe that's why even year later it still hurts. The story doesn't end after they change, it's end while they are changing. One more thing before we close. On July 18, 2019, someone set fire to Kyoto Animation Studio. 36 people died, including Hyouka's director. It's one of the worst mass killing in modern Japanese history, and it happened to the very people who made this show. So when people ask why there was never a second season, it's not that the story ran out, it's that you can't replace the specific people who saw the world the way they did, and its silence is a tribute. Thank you to everyone who put themselves into the show, and whoever is watching till now, thank you. I started this channel because I love anime too much, and there's always a scene in anime that makes me curious or hyped up, but when I look up to YouTube, there isn't much explanation around it. And I always wanted to talk about it or either find a video that could explain that thing, but I couldn't really never find a video like that. So I thought maybe I should just make them myself. If this is the kind of thing you like too, then see you in the next one.